have 32 past the hour, so I am going to begin. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this presentation. My name is Raimy Rubin. I am the Director of Marketing for CauseMatch, and this is our webinar on donor communications made simple. So I want to go through a couple of housekeeping items before we get to the good stuff. The agenda today is going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to present for approximately 25 to 30 minutes. We'll use the remaining 15 minutes or so for Q&A. And you should know that this webinar is being recorded. So if you need to step out, if you miss a detail, if you would like to share this with any of your colleagues, if you like it so much the first time you want to watch it again, you will be able to do that. We hope to send this recording out to you tomorrow. You can absolutely use the chat for Q&A. The last 15 minutes of this presentation will be Q&A. I've asked my colleague Lavana is going to moderate that part of the conversation, so you can use the Q&A either during the presentation or afterward, and I will try and answer as many questions as I can. Which brings us to the fourth item of housekeeping is if I miss anything, if we do not get to all the questions, if you think of something afterward, please know my inbox is always open, Raimy@causematch.com. I really like hearing from you. This is a very asymmetrical relationship that I'm having with you right now, but I want to create as much symmetry as possible. So please email me. Actually, in line with that, when we send out the recording, there'll be a survey included, a link to a survey included with the recording. Please fill that out. Let me know what you thought of this. I really like the constructive feedback, and I want to be able to present material that's relevant and interesting to you in an engaging way. So both about this particular webinar and webinars in general, please fill out that survey and let me know how we're doing and how we can improve. Just a note about CauseMatch. CauseMatch is the most powerful fundraising platform on the market. We specialize in peer-to-peer ambassador-led campaigns. And the way that I see it, there are really three things that I think differentiate us from a lot of the other platforms on the market, and that's really our technology, our strategy, and our customer support. I bring this up to you today because this webinar, I think, falls into that second bucket of fundraising strategy. We want to be able to impart the best practices that we've developed as a company to you, the frontline fundraisers, as much as possible. And I am going to touch on a little bit of our technology as well toward the end of this presentation, because it's in an effort to sort of bake that fundraising strategy into our technology as much as possible. I think that will give you, again, the fundraisers, the easiest way to actually implement some of the best practices we're going to be talking about today. So I will, at the end of this presentation, touch a little bit on the technology that we employ here at CauseMatch. What I would really appreciate is if you could all open up your chats, as Marty, I see, has already done, and just let me know the name of your organization and what the impact area is, if it's not obvious from the name of the organization. That will help me sort of tailor some of the examples that I give on the fly here to the relevant parties in the room. So if you wouldn't mind opening up your chat and just letting me know. Awesome, thank you, Shlomo. So nice to see so many new names as well as familiar names and faces as well. Just take that opportunity to say thank you again for joining this webinar. Okay, we can dive in as those answers keep coming in. Please continue to use that chat. Thank you. I want to do a little bit of story time to start this presentation. I want to take you back to the year 2005. It was my first day out in the workplace after I graduated college. It was my first day at a real job. And I went to work for a nonprofit in their marketing department. And I was given a task on my first day to write a direct mail letter. So I was given this task. I was an English major. I had taken a marketing class or two. I had no idea what a direct mail letter even meant. So I went back to my desk and I Googled, what is a direct mail letter? And I learned on the very first day of my very first job that a direct mail letter is a snail mail appeal that organizations, that nonprofits send to their donors to ask for money. So that was the first thing that I learned on my first day of work. Then I needed to learn what makes for a good direct mail letter. How do you write a good, effective direct mail letter? And that was the next thing that I Googled. And on that Google search, I went down a rabbit hole of learning about different fundraising strategies. And on that very first day of my very first job, I was introduced to a communication structure that really set the stage for my professional career, at least up until now. Is structure that I fell in love with. It was really love at first sight. I continue to believe in it even more than I did on that first day. So much so that I'm now imparting that to you 20 some years later, 19 years later, about this structure. So that structure is ask, thank, report. It's the ask, thank, report structure. And basically what the ask, thank, report structure says is that you should be in regular communications with your donors, and each piece of communication should have this distinct purpose of either asking, thanking, or reporting. Each piece of communication should have that distinct purpose. Now, I have put a tremendous amount of thought into the ask, thank, report strategy, like a tremendous amount of thought into it. And I didn't know any of this back when I first learned about this structure, but I've thought a lot about why I like it so much and why I believe it works so well. And before we get into any of the details of what a good ask, a good thank, or a good report actually looks like, I first want to talk just a little bit about why I like the structure at all. And I thought of it basically to come into 4 different categories. Number 1 is that it focuses your message. It focuses your message. You are going to know exactly what you need to convey with each piece of communication that you're sending out to a donor. Not only will each message be focused, but each line within your message is going to be focused, because you're going to be able to ask yourself, does it strengthen the ask? Does it convey your gratitude in a thank? Does it report back to donors on how their donation is going to be used, on the impact that they have? So it focuses your entire message, and it focuses each line within your message. It sort of gives you that checks and balances system that you can use to see if your message is going to be effective. That's reason number 1. Reason number 2 why I think this works so well is that you never have to start with the blinking cursor, because if you know what the focus of your message is going to be, then there's almost no writer's block. Everything is going to come, you're going to be able to clearly articulate what you're trying to say after that. One of the things that I do when I do have that blinking cursor and I'm thinking about my ask, my thank, or report, is I literally write on the screen, I type in the words, I'm writing to you today because I want to ask you for money, or I want to thank you for your gift, or I want to report back to you. Now, I don't always end my final draft, that generally does not include that starting line, but just putting sort of that thesis statement right at the top helps me flow, it helps the flow, and you're just never starting with that blank sheet of paper because you know exactly what you're trying to convey and what your message is going to be. The third reason why I think it works so well is probably the most important of the 4 that I'm going to lay out for you right now, and that it ensures that you communicate with your donors. I'd say one of the worst things that you can do as a fundraiser after a donor donates is go radio silent on them. Just not tell them, not thank them for their gift, and not report back to them. So this structure, if nothing else, should give you the confidence in the direction to go out and communicate with your donors and know exactly what you need to say to them at each turn. The last reason why I like this so much is that it makes donors feel awesome. The ask, thank, report cycle is what donors get in return for their generosity. They get to feel appreciated. They get to feel loved. They get to feel seen and heard by you. You get to say, yes, you did a good thing that I remember, and your generosity has had a tremendous impact. This is what they get in return for their generosity. So the ask, thank, report cycle looks exactly like this, right? The ask is laying out what the problem is in the world. And generally speaking, you fundraisers are pretty good at this. This is what you do as fundraisers. You ask for money. This is a large you, not you to this specific group, but you lay out what the problem is for donors. The thank is when it starts to get, I've seen fundraisers not be quite as strong when it comes to it. The thank is when you tell donors that there was a problem and your gift is going to go towards solving it. What I've seen is that we as humans are very good at making ourselves feel good about our gifts, right? We supply ourselves that dopamine hit, that warm glow that makes us feel awesome when we give, which is why there's so many organizations out there that get away without being particularly good at thanking or reporting. But what the thank does is the thank allows you to give that external dopamine hit. It allows you to sort of manufacture that warm glow for donors so that after they give, they feel it again. Now, this goes beyond a tax receipt. I'm definitely not talking here about transactional language. The thank here is an expression of gratitude, an emotional expression of gratitude. So we're going to stay away here from financial language, and we're going to move forward with more relationship-driven fundraising language. The report is where I see organizations fall even more short than the thank. And the report gets to tell people that the problem has been solved. So you have the ask, which lays out what the problem is. You have the thank, which tells donors that they are going to solve the problem because they donated. And the report is the problem has been solved. Now, a lot of you, I'm sure, send out newsletters and regular updates and reports and impact stories. And all of those are absolutely amazing. You should be doing that. Newsletters are fantastic for organizations to communicate with their donors. But I think seeing the report as part of the ask, thank, report structure, it's going to change the language that you use in your reports, because the report is no longer about how awesome your organization is or what you did over the last 3 months, 6 months, a year. The report is now going to be what you did with your donors' donations. The report is going to be, again, that expression of gratitude and reporting back to what a donor's gift has accomplished since they've given it to them, since they've given it to you. How did their donation solve the problem that you laid out in your ask? That is ultimately the ask, thank, report cycle. So I want to spend a couple minutes now going through what makes a good ask, a good thank, and a good report. I see a question here from Rabbi Katz that does the report need to be done as a direct mail or email work as well? Everything that I'm going to say here applies to all channels of communication. I don't believe that there is any one form of communication here. I think this could go for a one-on-one meeting, an email, a phone call, a WhatsApp, an SMS. It doesn't matter. This is all for all channels of communication. I was debating when I was putting this presentation together about how much time we should spend on talking about the ask. Because really, when I think of donor communications, I think of communications after the ask, for the thank and the report. But ultimately, I decided that it's important to start with the ask in this presentation, because I think if you lay the foundation with a great ask done in a great way, in the most effective way, it's going to lay that groundwork for a great thank and a great report as well. So the very first principle of a great ask is you have to give donors a problem to solve. That could be that families can't shoulder the cost of full tuition for their child's education, or there's crazy amount of pollution in the lake, or it could be that there are individuals in our community who feel totally alone. But bottom line is, whatever impact area you're operating within, you want to give donors a problem to solve. And you want that problem to be emotional. The emotional side of our brain is a much more generous, philanthropic side of the brain than the analytic side. So you want this ask to be an emotional ask. And you want to lay out what the solution is. You want the solution to be both simple and urgent. I heard a great way of expressing this the other day was you want to give a human-sized problem and a human-sized solution, which essentially means if your organization is tackling homelessness, your mission might be to eradicate homelessness. But that is a really, really tall task. Even if it's within your own community, that's not a task, that's not a job that donors can wrap their arms around and understand. It's not human-sized. The human-sized problem is that there's a person in our community who doesn't have a safe, warm, clean bed to sleep in tonight. And the solution is that when you donate, you are going to give this person a safe, warm, clean bed to sleep in. And that solution needs to happen now, because tonight is approaching and he's going to sleep somewhere. If you don't make the problem urgent, then donors are going to procrastinate the decision. It's going to be out of sight, out of mind. You need to give them a reason to give, and you need to give them a reason to give now. But that solution has to be simple. Has to be simple. Once again, even at the ask, you want donors to feel awesome. You want to lay the groundwork for that dopamine hit. You want to tell them that they are going to have an amazing, amazing impact when they donate. People should be giving with their hearts. They should be giving because they're inspired. They should want to give because of how awesome it's going to make them feel. And you can manufacture that with the language that you use. Tell them that they should be filled with an immense sense of pride when they donate, because they are going to change someone's life. The last principle that I want to lay out here is that you can ask more often than you probably are. I don't mean for the ask, thank, report cycle to be one long annual cycle that takes place over the course of 12 months. When it's done in this way, you can make an ask. In fact, there's a lot of research to suggest the benefits of asking for a second gift shortly after the first. Because when donors give to solve a problem, it's not an imposition. You're not asking them to give again. You're asking them to solve another problem. So as long as it's structured in this way, they're going to understand that this is an opportunity for them to put good into the world, and you are facilitating that opportunity. So these are the elements of a great ask. Let's talk about the elements of a great thank for a second. Now, I think that everything that I'm about to lay out here, I believe in very much, and I think is always true. I really don't think there are any exceptions to what I'm going to lay out here. But I think there are cases where they are especially true, where it's especially true. And I think that there's a special opportunity here when donors give through an ambassador to your organization. So again, CauseMatch, we specialize in peer-to-peer ambassador-led campaigns, which means that Lavana is going to ask me to donate to her fundraising goal, where she's raising money for her school that she's an alumni of. And I'm going to give because I care about my relationship with Lavana. So I'm going to give Lavana $10 for her school. Now, Lavana owns the relationship right now between the organization and me. So that means that if Lavana doesn't have the energy to fundraise again next year, or she churns as an ambassador, or she has to get into a big old fight, and I do no longer care about the organizations that she supports, the organization has no control over that relationship. What the thank and the report allow the organization to do is take control of that relationship, to build a relationship directly with their donors. So I think that everything that I'm about to lay out here is especially true in ambassador-led campaigns, where organizations have a tremendous opportunity to build relationships with their donors. Just wanted to say that before we dive into the elements of a good thing. The first element is that it should be done in a timely way. I think this, for the most part, is widely accepted. People should say thank you, and they should say thank you quickly. I know that this was ingrained in me. I have not so fond memories of getting my thank you notes out after my bar mitzvah very quickly, because my parents, who were not terribly strict parents, were very adamant that I do this regularly and get those thank you notes out very, very quickly. This is so much to the extent that I put that same pressure on my wife and me. When we got married, she thought I was totally crazy, but I needed to get, it was like totally ingrained in me. I needed to get those thank you notes out very quickly. So thank you notes need to be done in a very timely manner. Once again here, you want to make the thank you emotional. You want to make the thank you emotional. Again, when I was putting this presentation together, I was thinking back to my wedding because of this example of our thank you notes. And I was thinking that my wife had an uncle or an aunt who gave us a bread maker when we got married. And I was thinking about what an unemotional thank you note to this person might look like. Now, I have no recollection of what we actually wrote to this person, but someone could give you a bread maker, and you could say something like, thank you for giving me this bread maker. We're going to be able to make delicious bread with it. Great, that's a perfectly fine, unemotional thank you note to someone. But what you're able to do, if you put a little bit of thought into it and you really want to make someone feel awesome, is you can set the context for them, and you can say that something like, these types of gifts turn a house into a home. Because of this bread maker, we're going to be able to sit around our table. We're going to be with our loved ones, our family, and our friends, and we're going to create amazing memories together, and we're going to celebrate amazing times together. And it's all because you have helped us build our home and helped us build this family. There are ways to take something that doesn't feel very emotional and make it emotional. You're able to do that. So too with your thank you notes to your donor, with your thank you phone calls, your emails, your letters, whatever you're going to send, you can make donors feel absolutely awesome about making the world a better place. And one of the ways that you're going to be able to do that is you're going to be able to convey what true transformation looks like. There are people whose lives looked a certain way before they walked through the doors of your building, and now they're going to walk through their building and they're going to be transformed. If you can convey that transformation of what that transformation looks like to donors, you're going to do a really wonderful job in making them feel awesome about their gift. And that leads us to the next point, that all of your thank you notes should just make donors feel awesome. They should fill donors with that sense of pride that they have just done something absolutely amazing in the world. And just a reminder here that the point of these thank you notes is to build a relationship with donors, right? That's where it all stems from. You want to build relationships with donors. And to that end, it's not something that you can just check a box and say, okay, I've now sent a thank you note to these donors. I've done my job. I have thanked them for it. It's something that can happen over and over and over again. So not only is an ask thank report something that can happen multiple times within a calendar year, but you can give multiple thanks before you move to a report or another ask. It doesn't have to be exactly in that order, because for donors, they might not even remember that they gave to your organization. It might not have been a terribly big deal for them, but if you can remind them of that donation and say that it was a big deal for you, then you're going to go a long way in building that relationship with donors. So those are the elements of a great thank. In terms of a report, there are once again a couple of elements, 5 elements that I put together that I think really are the cornerstones of a fantastic report. And the first one is that it should be all about the donor, not about your organization. Your newsletter, your report is not about how awesome you, the organization, is. It should be about how awesome the donor is. So you can talk all about the amazing outcomes that take place within your walls. You absolutely should do that. But then you should tell donors that none of it would have happened if it weren't for them. Your newsletter, your report should be all about the donor, it should not be about the organization. You want to give donors all of the credit for your amazing work, right? So I have a serious pet peeve about phrases like, you have helped us do X, Y, or Z, or I've seen this at the ask phase, join us in doing this, together we will. And when you use phrases like that, you sort of diffuse the credit among a lot of people. But when you are talking, when your audience is your donors, you can give them all of the credit, all of the credit. So if you are a school, you might be tempted to say something like, you have helped us educate the next generation of community leaders, or something like that. But really, a better way to phrase that would be that when you donated, you educated the next generation of great leaders. You need to tie your donors as directly as possible to the service recipients that they're helping, to the impact that they're having. You, your organization, is a middleman in this transaction, but your donors are giving directly to the impact that they are facilitating. That's the goal here. That's the goal here. One of the things I've suggested this for asks in previous conversations with people, but I would suggest it for reports as well. I would suggest that you take out your last newsletter, your last report, and you circle all of the times you use the word we or us or our in reference to your organization. And then you take out a different color pen and you circle all of the times you use the word you in reference to the donor. So the goal is that you're talking about you much more often than you're talking about we. You want there to be a lot more yous than we's. This should always be about the donor, and we should be giving them all of the credit. I like to think like diet pills commercials. I remember these from back in the day. They did an amazing job of showing the person who wants to lose weight beforehand, and then they show the after picture of what the person looks like now after the diet pills. I think you should think in those terms for your report as well. Describe what life looked like. Show what someone looked like before they entered your organization. Again, whether it's someone who didn't have that level of education or someone who was lonely in the community, whatever the case may be, show what life looked like for that person beforehand, and then show what life looks like now that they've entered your world. And once again, circle back and give those donors all of the credit for that transformation. Once again, you want donors to feel awesome. This should be a celebration because a problem has been solved, right? That's what the report is. The problem has been solved. This person is now in the system, within the community, doesn't feel alone anymore. You want donors to feel absolutely awesome. And one of the great ways to make donors feel awesome is to use stories, not statistics. People, again, can't wrap their heads around the fact that 722 people were helped by your organization, but they can understand stories. They are much stickier. They will stay with a person much longer if you're able to use stories and not statistics, really play up on the emotional side of things. Now, I want to give you 4 more tips, 4 more strategies that I use when I write for organizations like yours to fundraise. I absolutely use all of these, and I think they work for the ask, the thank, and the report. They work at each stage. The first one is when I write, even if it's a script or getting ready to make a phone call, I think about it in terms of writing to one person, When you write to one person, it becomes much more real. So in my mind, I have my person, his name is Dan. He is a very philanthropic person. He's a real person. I know his last name. I am buddies with him. And every time I sit down to write, I think of Dan. And I try and use language that would resonate with Dan. He is my person. And when I have then written whatever I'm trying to write, I can sort of zoom out and make sure that it is appropriate and applicable for a larger audience. But when you write to one person, it becomes a much more emotional writing, because you won't be tempted to, copy and paste from your organization's mission statement, which is not something that you would ever write today on, because you're writing to one person. That just is a sort of clunky language to use in a personal relationship building letter. You're writing to one person. So I would absolutely encourage you, when you're sitting down to craft something, have one person in mind and write to that specific person. And then at the end, you can zoom out and try and make it as appropriate for as wide an audience as possible. And I write about one person. Thinking about those diet pills, the transformation is much easier to describe, the before and the after, if you think of one person. Now, the objection I hear to this is that this one person probably didn't go through all of the services that your organization offers. So by definition, you're not going to be talking about everything that your organization does, and that's okay. It's more important that we feel the depth of this person's pain points than it is about the breadth of services that you offer. So I would encourage you to write to one person about one person. Next is to focus on outcomes, not processes. When you focus on outcomes, you're going to be able to fundraise for anything, whether that's general operating support or salaries or even cleaning supplies. Why? Because if let's say you're fundraising for cleaning supplies, but you're focused on outcomes, not processes, the donor isn't just funding bleach and floor cleaner. I was thinking of this in terms of a school, but when someone funds bleach and floor cleaner, they're creating a space where students are excited and proud to learn, a place that reflects the values taught inside, a place where young men and women are going to feel inspired and unleash their creativity on the world. Those are outcomes that come out of a fundraising campaign, but they're not the process that's involved. So always focus on outcomes, not processes, when you're thinking about structuring your ask, your think in the report. And lastly, your donor should always be at the center. Always be at the center. They are not your donors. Don't think of them as your donors. You are one of their organizations. And if you think about it that way, if you kind of switch your mindset in that way, then it forces you to earn their trust over and over and over again by putting them at the center and constantly telling them how amazing they are by giving to your organization. So those are the principles that I wanted to impart with you. Last thing that I wanted to talk about before I open it up for questions is I wanted to talk a little bit about the technology we use at CauseMatch for a very specific reason. So we offer something, over the last couple of months, we've developed a product called Donor Connect. And Donor Connect allows you to message your donors and your ambassadors right from the CauseMatch dashboard. Now, you could easily use your own email client to send out emails to your donors and your ambassadors. So what is the power of Donor Connect? Why is this something special that we're really excited about and have seen amazing results with so far? It's because you're able to personalize with Donor Connect, and you're able to really build those relationships through mass communication. And it happens with those lines at the bottom, specifically the easy segmentation and merge tags. So just to give you I want to give you two examples. We've seen organizations take the top 10% of donors that raise the most amount of money for their campaign. They're easily able to segment and personalize that message by saying, you, Lavana, were in the top 10% of people who raised money for our campaign. You did an amazing thing. Thank you so much. That level of personalization deepens the relationship between the ambassador and the organization, which is ultimately the point of this communication in the first place, because it's no longer a mass email that's going to everyone and could be applicable to everyone. It's specific to this person through easy segmentation, and you can send that to hundreds of people all at the same time, and each one will feel personalized. The other example of a merge tag that I've seen with really tremendous results is people have inserted the name of the ambassador that they was donated through. So my thank you email from you would look something like, Raimy, thank you so much for your donation. When you donated through Lavana's campaign page, you did an amazing thing by doing X, Y, or Z. And once again, that level of personalization deepens the relationship between the organization and the donor. So it's just different ways that we're trying to bake in this strategy into the technology. And any way that you're able to do that through your own systems, I would totally encourage you to do this because those relationships are what's going to keep donors coming back campaign after campaign and year after year. So with that, I would like to open it up for questions. You can use the chat, and I'm happy to try and cover as much ground as we can in the next 15 minutes or so.
Okay, yes, we have a question. Okay, so what if, a lot of people here are founders, CEOs, fundraising directors, whatever you might be. You know, they're under a lot of stress. There's a lot going on. And we admit we maybe have gone a little bit radio silent on some donors. How do we get back into that relationship without just like sounding funny? Like, you know, we want to recultivate it, but how do we do that?
Sure. I would encourage you, whoever asked this question, not to overthink it too much. Meaning the paralysis of not doing anything is ultimately going to be worse than communicating and doing something. As long as it's in a genuine way, you're able to remind people of their donation. You can remind them of their campaign. You can even call out what their last donation was. Your last donation of $10 to our organization did a tremendous amount of good. So you just want to remind people and get them back in the cycle. I think there's a lot of fear that I've seen and I've experienced personally of not doing things in the exact right, perfect way when it comes to these things. And I don't think that the fear of not doing it in the best possible way should stop you from doing something at all. Because I think the pros of doing something imperfectly far, far outweigh the cons of doing something, of not doing anything at all. I would just say that do something. And I think there's ways to do it in a very authentic, genuine way.
Okay. Okay. Another question. Donors are busy and often distracted with life, with everything. So how can we be persistent and get their attention without coming across as obnoxious and in their face a little bit?
Okay, so I have a couple things to say about this. An excellent question. My first thing I have to say is I think that it's hard to come across as obnoxious when the message is about them, right? Like if you're talking about me, I'm going to be naturally interested. Me is my favorite subject, right? If you're going to tell me how awesome I am, I'm going to want to be interested. I'm going to want to learn. So, and hear more about that. So I think a lot of times we assume that donors are going to tune us out because we're talking about ourselves. We're talking about the organization. There's that persistent need to educate the donor about the work that we do. I don't believe in educating the donor, to be quite honest. I believe in inspiring the donor. I believe in making the donor feel awesome about the work that the donation that they've given, or even if it's a prospective donor, I want them to feel inspired about the impact that they could have. But if it's about educating the donor, then yeah, that's not about them. That's about the organization. That's number one. Number two is I think there does need to be some sort of multi-channel. We got to get in front of people. There's a lot of noise out there. So that's another reason why it's not good enough just to check a box and say, okay, I sent this email out. I'm done with this task. Sometimes we have to get in front of people in multiple ways. I will give you a sneak peek to specifically the people on this webinar is I put together a book of templates that I am going to send out in the next week or so that are just pieces of communication that you can certainly customize for your own organization, but you will have templates to start with that follow the Ask, Thank, Report cycle. And they're templates for the entire year. But part of that is getting in front of people and sending them an email and then sending them a WhatsApp or an SMS afterward that said, I just sent you an email with this information, to make sure that we're getting in front of them in multiple ways, because there definitely is a lot of noise out there. But I believe that if we are persistent and if the message is about the donor, then we're going to be able to cut through a lot of that noise.
Yeah. Okay, there are two more questions and then Shlomo, I see you raising your hand, so we'll do these two first. Just go in order over here. Okay, so the next one is, it could be off topic, but what systems or CRMs do people have in place to keep track of when communication was last made and when it should be made again, so nothing slips through the cracks?
Okay, so I'm definitely not an expert on the CRMs that our clients use. We can use this one more time to plug the CauseMatch platform. That one of the great things about it is certainly that our head of product and I were just talking about the other day is that the data that comes from our own system is uncorruptible, right? There's no import or export. If you're pulling someone's last donation, it's going to be what the last donation was within the system because it's all coming from the same place. So it's not sort of merging all of this data from different places. But I won't stay on my soapbox for the CauseMatch platform for too long. But the answer is I do not know what the different systems are that are out there in terms of what this group, our clients, are using for their CRM.
Yeah, there's a bunch of good ones. I think Little Green Light, people like it. There's also oh gosh, I'm forgetting the names. Kindful, maybe. Bloomerang. Bloomerang is Kindful, maybe.
Bloomerang is a big one.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. And then another one, is it okay to send a thank yous even 3 months after the donation, or will this remind donors that you have been unresponsive? And if it is okay, do we need to apologize for being tardy?
I think it is perfectly okay, and I would not apologize. I think you pick up where you want to pick up, and you start running with that relationship. I think if you call attention to the absence of the thank you, that's not the best strategy. I think just thanking them and sort of combining it into a report, if that much time has passed, that you're thanking them for their gift, but then you can kind of go into some of the details of some of the outcomes that have happened in the subsequent months, just to sort of tie all the loose ends together.
Yeah. Okay, Shlomo, did you want to ask something?
Yeah, sure. What would you say is a good timeline and like number of reach outs for something like an annual, so let's say year-end appeal? It's very specific because my organization is going to do that, but I always vacillate between like how many times we should be reaching out and over how long of a period.
Yeah, it's another really good question, and I think we would need to have a little bit more information to answer specifically about it. But I certainly appreciate that, especially end of year, donors are really bombarded by asks. They are, and there's really a lot of noise to cut through. So on the one hand, you're just sort of adding to the pile. But on the other hand, once again, if you go radio silence, then they're certainly not going to think of you as all of these other organizations are getting in their face. So I think all I can say, and Shlomo, this is something that I'm happy to talk more about after this webinar, if we can get into some of the details. But I think you're asking the right questions, and I think that it makes sense to do something early enough that maybe you can beat the noise before it really starts. I don't know if that means in the beginning of December or something like that, and to start that communications chain then, and then ramp up to a real ask at the end of the year. But I think it also would make sense to pay attention to whatever data you have on those pieces of communication, assuming they're emails, to follow those open rates and sort of see what direction they're going as you send them. I know that's not the most specific answer, but again, I think there's a couple more variables I would want to know about before we got too specific there.
No, it's very helpful, because just the comment about like, yes, we're one in a pile, but also we kind of need to be in the pile.
Yep.
Is very helpful. Yeah, especially when there's so many other places asking.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay, anyone else want to ask anything?
I will add, hi. My question was about, for those of us who have gone radio silent, how you get out of it. So I appreciate the recommendation of just like embrace the awkwardness and go for it and don't think too much about it. But you did say at the end of your answer that you had some like natural ways or like things to bring up. So if you wanted to just give us some more detail, I would be very grateful for that.
Well, I think the key, if you have, is to, once again, remind donors of their donation in the first place. So I think that's a great way to start. You can remind them how much they donated. You can put in a date. There's been actually a lot of really good research about reminding people when they gave is an important variable as well. But I do think that if that much time has gone by, to think of it as a report and to really tell them how you have solved the problem over the last couple of months or whatever it's been since their donation. And what that will do is that will set the stage for you to ask them again, because you're not saying that the problem is solved, you're closing up shop, your organization doesn't need to exist anymore. You're saying that for those individuals that have gone through your services, the problem has been solved, but there are so many more people that are calling out for help. So you sort of want to think of it in terms of the cycle and sort of jump in maybe even at the report stage and that's going to lead you more to the ask phase. But the most important part is to get back into the cycle. It's just to really get back into the cycle. But thank donors for their gift and then report back on how that money has been used if it's been a couple months.
Nice.
Awesome.
Oh, Esther. Yeah.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, good. Hi, I'm Esther. I work at a Jewish day school in the Boston area, and I'm new to the development role. And I think a lot of this is what's happened. Like, there's been a lot of radio silence. There's been a lot of donors who have been giving for a really long time just because of the founder of the school who's now, aging. And so a lot of what I'm trying to do for almost the first time is like pick up from the radio silence and like bring in new donors. So this has been so helpful. Thank you. I think the last question was really helpful. And the question I have here is like, how do you sort of strike the balance of almost like not responsiveness being like a hard no, like let's move on, versus like, I know they've given in the past, maybe it's just a different avenue, or maybe I need someone else to reach out that's not new and continue to like pursue that lead, versus like, it's better to find my time elsewhere and find new donors through a different avenue.
So just so I understand the question, you're saying there's someone who's been giving to your organization in the past, but has been non-responsive recently.
Yeah.
So I think there's different ways to approach this. My instinct is that it could be an amazing learning opportunity. And even if you were to try and get this person's time to understand what happens, not from a perspective of you even want their gift back, which of course you do, there would be a little bit of an ulterior motive there, but really just to learn why, because that will help you in the future. And I think even if you frame it like that, I think there are ways to repair that relationship. Or at least start the process by asking for their help, which I know might seem a little bit counterintuitive to ask someone for help who's being non-responsive, but often those types of little investments are the best way to get people more invested in your organization. So almost think of it like you would, like if you lost a customer, if you're a business and you lost a customer and you just want to understand why, for you to be able to say to them, this isn't about even getting you back, this is about us doing a better job so that this doesn't happen again in the future. And I think there are really nice ways to do that. And it really is about that person-to-person relationship. So if it's not happening with you, then I think to try for someone else to try, I don't think is a terrible idea. But ultimately, people do give to people. So you want to find the right person for this person to make that ask at the right time.
It's really helpful. Thank you.
Awesome. We are at a quarter after the hour on my watch, so I want to be respectful of all of your time. But again, my email is right on the board there, so please let me know if there are any questions that we did not get to, and I'm happy to address them. And thank you all for coming. You'll be hearing from me in the next day or so with the recording and the survey.